I can go outside of the box and I can create the life that I really want to create. And so that's what choosing yourself is.
This is the Convene podcast. What does it really mean to choose yourself, and how do you build a business from that decision? In this Season 7 episode, we're joined by DeShawn Wynn, Chief Meeting Architect at Winning Touch Event Design. DeShawn began her entrepreneurial journey in the 3rd grade and has since built a thriving career by embracing risk, trusting her vision, and cultivating what she calls a winning mindset. She shares how mindset impacts leadership, how to build a profitable business with purpose, and why saying no can be just as powerful as saying yes. Tune in for real talk on fear, failure, freedom, and the lessons behind building a business on your own terms. We start now. Many event professionals hesitate to take the leap to starting out on their own. What does it really mean to choose yourself, and how did you make that decision in your own career?
I think choosing yourself is really going after what it is that you truly desire. I I always joke about the fact that I have realized that I do not make a good employee. So so whenever I was working for someone else, it just didn't feel right. I didn't like it. I really believe that I was born a natural entrepreneur. I started my first business in the 3rd grade. My mind thinks like an entrepreneur. And I think that a lot of times we try to fit that square peg in a round hole because someone told us that this is the way you're supposed to go through life. And choosing yourself is just saying, I don't have to fit that blueprint, or I don't have to fit that, idea. Like, I can go outside of the box and I can create the life that I really want to create. And so that's what choosing yourself is. And so was it easy? No. Like, it took me a while. It took me a long time of being frustrated. But yeah, I say that this has been the hardest thing that I've ever done, but also the most rewarding, most fulfilling, and I would do it again in a heartbeat.
I bet. It's a scary feeling. I understand the frustration, and I'm sure that many people have that frustration, but then it passes, right? You just have a hard moment and then it passes. No?
No,
No.
no, you have lots of hard moments. But I think what does happen is you get better at getting through them. So I remember when I went to file my paperwork and get my business name, and I was all excited and I filled out the paperwork, and then I got into the elevator. And as I was going down the elevator, I was like, oh, we really about to do this. Like, and then it was like, panic struck and, sweat starts going down your face. But it was like it became very real. Like, I'm really about to do this. And so, then you go into the hurdles of, what's interesting is I come from a family of entrepreneurs. However, they are not traditional in the sense of they ran their businesses while working full time. So, everybody in my sister, my brother, father, they all had side gigs that were 100% their own, but they worked a full-time job. And so when it comes to me, who is like, forget the full-time job, I'm just going to do the entrepreneurial thing, my mom was just like, what do you have against working? Like, she did not understand it. And so, it becomes that where it's like, I say sometimes entrepreneurship can also be a very lonely time because nobody understands the reason why you have this drive, or the reason, and it's like when you go through that struggle, it's like, oh, we have a slump in sales. People are just like, well, go get a job. Like, why are you stressing out? Why are you struggling? Like, and it's this time where you're constantly trying to explain, like, no, this is my vision, this is my goal, this is what I want to go after. And a lot of times people don't understand it. I remember advice that my aunt gave me when I first started my business, and she was like, No, she's like, get a good county job, work for 20 years, collect your pension, and then start your business. And I'm just like, I want to be vacationing. Like, I don't want to be starting a business after 20 years of working. Like, I want to be able to reap the rewards after 20 years of working. So it's, it's a constant it's a constant challenge because something new is always going to come up. The we had the pandemic, so that's a totally different shift. How does my business model need to change? How do I need to pivot in order to stay viable? The economy is going up. You got the prices going up. And it's like, how do I maneuver these things? And how do I be the best for my clients and how do I be the best for me? Like, I don't think there's ever a point where you don't have a challenge or it's just smooth sailing. You just learn to lean into it and keep going.
I love that. And I've read that in some of the descriptions about you, about cultivating a winning mindset. And I love how winning is written piggybacking off of your surname, WY. And I love it. What are the characteristics of a winning mindset?
It's really paying attention to the messages that you're giving yourself because a lot of times we're having conversations with ourselves all day, every day. But a lot of times we don't pay attention to what it is that we're telling ourselves. And sometimes the messages that we're giving ourselves are counter to our goals and where we want to go. And so the winning mindset is really just taking the time to sit down and figure out, what is it that I'm truly believing? Like, what is it that I'm truly working towards? And and am I feeding myself that message that's going to get me to where I want to go? And just making sure that you're not, you're not telling yourself things that are going to hinder you. Like that you're not, if you're trying to grow a successful business, that you're not feeding yourself a message of I can't do this. And it may not come out of your mouth, but there are going to be things that in your heart and in your mind where that's really your belief. And unless you really, focus, sit down, figure out what is it that I'm thinking, what is it that's in my subconscious, like reaching those goals are going to be very difficult, if not impossible.
Yeah, so because you battle all those internal fears, right? And
Yes. And a lot of times it's coming from past trauma. A lot of times it's coming from the messages that you're hearing from other people, because if the messages that you're hearing from other people is, oh, you need to go get a 9 to 5, and this entrepreneurship thing is not going to work. Are you really internalizing that? Are you believing it? Or are you really saying, you know, no, this is going to work? Like, what are you internalizing and how is that affecting you reaching your goal? And also, what trauma or what lesson or what past experience have you stuffed down, and but it's still resurfacing in subconscious ways.
any advice you can give on how to go about it? Of course, it will be personal. There will be things not everyone can apply, but how did
Mm,
you go about?
really taking really taking the time to think about what I think about, doing a lot of journaling, doing a lot of just analyzing why am I stuck? Like what is it about, what is it that's scaring me? What is it? Why can't I get over this hurdle? And then once I figure out, okay, this is what's scaring me, why is it scaring me? Like, what happened that got me to this point? What lie am I believing about this moment? And then, journaling it out, talking with other people, just about, hey, this is what I'm struggling with. Because a lot of times other people can see you better than you can see yourself. So having those conversations with trusted friends, and trusted people, or getting therapy, but just really taking the time to sit down and listen to yourself.
I love that, especially when all these negative messages come sometimes from your closest people. And they are actually trying to protect you, not being, disappointed or ending up, without being financially secure.
Right.
So it's really hard to navigate and not at least a little bit listen to them because yeah, you're also afraid of all these things happening to you.
Right, exactly. Exactly. And you do gain momentum because, when you realize what it is that you're afraid of, and you realize, what it is, what your triggers are, and then you have that win, then you have something to build on, and be like, no, I've been through this before. Like I came out on the other side, and so you can build on that momentum. But if you're always living in a doomsday scenario, then you're going to lead into that. And I mean, I think that one of the things, like, I've had to pretty much turn off the news because I think the news keeps you in a doomsday scenario where everything is always going to go wrong all the time with it, And so it's also what you feed yourself. So I'm a person that listen to a lot of podcasts that are going to be, positive mindset podcasts. I'm limiting the amount of news and then sensationalized gossip, and I'm turning that off because it also, is very important what you're feeding yourself. And then the people who I'm surrounding myself with people who are in the places that I want to be. So, picking your friends wisely, and then distancing yourselves from the people who are not who are not going to help you get to where you are. So, if you're constantly surrounding yourself with people who are telling you that you're not going to make it, you're going to lean into that. So, surrounding yourself with people who are making it and have that same desire, vision, and drive that you have, it definitely helps. The use of mastermind groups, and like-minded people who can hold you accountable and who want to see you win. Those are definitely ways that can move you forward.
And let's say our listeners, or at least one of our listeners, is taking that leap.
Mhm.
How can, what are the steps they should take to build a profitable business? Any suggestions that you can give them?
Again, I think it goes to being laser focused, and really taking the time to sit down and decide, what is it that I want? Where do I want this business to go? Creating that vision and locking that vision in. And then when you see that vision, helping, going and getting help to make sure that, you are able to give the best service that you can give. So, what skills do I need to learn? How am I going to be the best at what this is that I'm giving? And making sure that you seek that help to get those skills up. And then again, locking in as far as building a network, getting the resources, and then continually evaluating and moving, not being tied to, this is the only way that this goal can happen, but being flexible enough that as roadblocks or pivots come, you're okay with pivoting, because you're constantly asking yourself this question of, how does this get me to my goal? And if you're stuck in this is the only way it can happen, you may delay or even block what's really truly for you. So saying, this is the goal, but how I'm getting there, it might turn, it might move, it might pivot, and I'm okay with that. I'm just going to follow the journey, and I'm not going to be. You're going to get nervous, you're going to be scared, but I'm going to go with it, and I'm going to enjoy the journey.
What are some misconceptions that people may have about entrepreneurship in the industry, and what's really behind them?
I think that a lot of times we have done this disservice of meeting planners are superheroes, meeting planners are invincible. And I think with with social media, with us having, you know, Zoom and all of this technology, people now think that they have access to you 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And whenever I want you, I need you to be responsive. And I think a lot of times, especially as entrepreneurs, we take on that burden of, I always have to be on. Like, what do they need? Like, and it's very easy to forget about yourself and, just focus totally on the business and, and not take those moments of breaks and, working crazy hours and, you know, not giving yourself time to just shut it off and shut it down. And yes, there are going to be times where, you're going to have to give it a little bit more. You're going to have to do those late nights, early mornings, but it should not be every week. It should not be every day. Like it should not be a constant. One of the best things that ever happened to me is somebody hacked my email about 2 years ago. And so what was happening was they had sent out these robo emails. And so I was getting all the bounce backs. And so it was coming up on my phone. And so like every 3 seconds I was getting this, 200 emails, 200 bounce backs that were coming to my phone. And it was driving me crazy because it was like immediately putting me in that who's emailing me, what's happening, that type of thing, that anxiety. And so I had to remove my email notifications from my phone. It was the best thing I've ever done. And I have not put them back because because I'm not getting that constant ping of, oh, do I need what do I need to do? I was waking up in the morning and the first thing that I was doing was picking up my phone to see who emailed me. What do I need to go? And that is such a wrong way to start your day. so
Yes.
so now it's like, no, this is, figuring out how is it that I want to start my day. And again, choosing me. Like I own this business. I tell people how to treat me. And this is the life that I want to live. This is how I want to start my mornings, not in a panic, running to my computer. It's
For
like,
sure. I was wondering where you're going to go with they hacked my email and that was the best thing that ever happened to me. I was like, it
yes.
doesn't sound like it, but I see your point. Well, I hope people don't wait for their email to be hacked to stop their notifications, right?
Exactly. Exactly. Like, do it now before you start getting the robo bounce backs.
And how has your leadership style evolved because of that journey that you're on?
It's a matter of trust. I'm learning to trust. I think when I first started my business, it was like, this is my baby. I can't give out anything for my baby. Like I got to do it all. And so now I'm at a place where I can't do it all. I don't want to do it all. Again, I'm choosing the life that I want and choosing how I want to spend my day. And based on that vision for my life, I need help. So I need people to help me. And so trusting people to help me, one, and then trusting them to do what it is that they were brought in to do. So, staying in my lane, understanding my lane. That's your lane. This is my lane. I'm going to stay out of it. And so it's really been, again, a journey of me just learning how to trust. And then because again, we go back to talking about how, the fear never goes away. You just learn how to handle it more because there will be times when, people are going to fail you or people are not going to do what they say that they're going to do. And, that could turn you back into the spiral of, see, I knew I can't trust nobody. I got to do it all myself. you know? So again, not allowing that to dictate how you move, just, hey, bumps in the road come, that wasn't the person for you. Let's find the person who, can do what it is that you need them to do, and rolling into that, and not being triggered. Still working on that. Uh, but yeah, getting better, getting better.
I have to plug in here that corporate jobs also make you feel that way, where, when people fail you and then you're like, oh, I should do it all myself. And you end up in that same loop. And the other thing, I don't think let me backtrack. I don't know how many people realize that actually being an entrepreneur, you rely a lot on other people. It's not you're braving, the wilderness. I feel like I'm quoting Brené Brown's book, but you know, you're, you're not. You don't have to do it all on your own. You're not. You are conquering your fears. That's your own thing. But then everything else, you can lean on people and
Right,
use their help.
right. I mean, that's the key to success, because if you're not, then it's going to be extremely hard for you to be successful, just because it's too much. It's not possible. I also think that it's critical to it goes to that, what I was saying, in terms of being able to pivot quickly, because again, if you put somebody in this position to help you and they're not helping you, you know being able to cut it off and move on in a timely manner, and not dragging it out and therefore setting yourself back. So again, being able to be like, oh, this was not the move, let's find the correct move, and doing it quickly. I think that's the other key.
Do you remember such a moment that you can highlight?
I think when I first started my business, I had amazing contract. I was doing 2 to 3 community meetings a week. Money was flowing. It was great. And what happened with me is I was so focused on that job, that client, and I wasn't continuing to prepare in case that went away. and so and so I still wasn't out there prospecting. I was no longer, networking. I was locked into this contract, and this is what my focus, and I'm locked into this. And then the contract went away because funding went away. And then I'm sitting there and I'm like, what I do now? you know, like, so I basically had to start at ground zero, because it was not a subtle, like, we'll give you 3 months. It was like, no, it's over. Money stopped. And so again, it was a lesson for me in terms of not, never getting so comfortable, with a contract, or with a client, that I think that it's that I'm not considering what else can come along, or not considering, what's going to happen after this, and not considering other ways, because who knows what, business that I overlooked, because I was so, locked into this one contract. And so, really, really getting in the mindset of just being open to, you never know what's going to come your way, and being open to looking at the big picture, and at your surrounding environment, and not just, looking at the small thing that's in front of you.
And you mentioned networking. In our industry, everything's relationship based. So how do you keep up with that?
I'm I'm intentional with my networking. I look at things I need, that I need strength in, and I look for that in my networking. So when I first started my business, I needed help with, I don't know how much I should be charging. I don't know how I should set myself up. And so, I looked at people in the industry who were where I wanted to be, and I called them up and I'm like, "Hey, can we have lunch? Let's talk." And I started building my network there. I have a dear friend from who's in Baltimore, Kareem Swinton, and I will never forget. I walked up to him. He was in sales, and I walked up to him. I was like, "I need to learn how to sell. I need to learn how to look at these contracts. You're going to help me." And he looked at me like, "Okay." He really helped me build my career because, I was able to pick up the phone and call him like, "What do I do? How do I do?" And so, a lot of times we talk about, joining these organizations, like joining a PCMA. But yes, join the PCMA. But while you're in PCMA, like take a look at who's there, take a look at who's around, and start using that to find out the things that you need to know to be successful.
Yeah, definitely. I love that approach also. Just pick up the phone, shoot that message and ask for help.
Hmm. Hmm.
Actually, people are very open because we all love to be needed. So,
Exactly. Exactly. I mean, and people aren't used to being asked. And so it's like, when somebody actually sits down and asks you, it's like, "Oh, okay." Yeah,
yeah.
I would love to.
What would be the one piece of advice you wish you had when you were starting Winning Touch event design?
All money is not good money. Choosing choosing wisely. Again, as entrepreneurs, especially when I started, it was like if if somebody asked me, I was gonna take it. Yes, yes, take the money, take the money. you know. And again, that was based out of fear. But really looking at where is it that I want to go, and when the contract or the opportunity comes along, really evaluating, is this going to get me closer to where I want to go, or is it going to hold me back? And trusting myself, my skills, and my knowledge enough to not take everything or take jobs out of fear, but really going after and choosing things that are going to get me to the next level of where I want to be.
Very nice. Was there
Mhm.
anything we didn't mention we should before we end?
Oh, wow. We talked about a lot. I guess the other thing that a lot of times people say, "Oh, I want to own my own business." But one thing that I have also realized as, being 15 years owning my own business, not everybody was made to be an entrepreneur, and that's okay. Really sit down and figure out before you take that leap if this is really who you're built to be, because it's a struggle. You're constantly, having to prospect. You're looking, your your ability to take no for an answer. How do you respond when things don't go your way? Like, are you more comfortable with the security of a 9 to 5, knowing that, your check is guaranteed? Well, somewhat guaranteed. You still can get fired, but you have that security, and it's okay if that's who you need to be. Some people like myself, I like the freedom more than I like the security. And that's, just really knowing and understanding who you are and standing firm in that.
Very nice and to our conversation. Thank you, DeShawn, so much for making the time and sharing your lessons learned on this journey.
Thank you.
Remember to subscribe to the Convene podcast on your favorite listening platform to stay updated with our latest episodes. For further industry insights from the Convene team, head over to pcma.org/convene. My name is Maggie. Stay inspired, keep inspiring, and until next time.